listening to the Jersey Guys Podcast, the show that talks about hard rock, heavy metal, AOR, and West Coast music. In-depth conversation and special guests are always on tap, so settle in and turn it up. Now, here are your hosts, Tom and Mark.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Jersey Guys Podcast. We're back with a brand new episode today. I'm here with my co-host Tom Coyne as always, and today we've got special guest Dennis Churchill-Dries from the band White Sister, and of course he also was in the band Tattoo Rodeo. He's had a solo album out, and he's working on a brand new project now, 1206. So we're going to talk to Dennis about all those things and more. Let's get right to it then. Hey everybody, we're here with Dennis Churchill-Dries from White Sister and Tattoo Rodeo, and of course his solo career. So we're going to talk about that all today. And welcome, Dennis. How are you?
Hey, what's happening? I'm doing well, thanks, guys.
Good. So I guess what Tom and I are going to do is we'll start talking about the early White Sister and we'll days. We'll go through that. We'll work up to Tattoo Rodeo and work our way up to your solo stuff and what you've got going on right now, if that's cool.
Sure, let the therapy begin. Go ahead.
Okay.
You're gonna uncover some rocks, and I'm gonna go, I forgot all about that.
Okay, well, that's cool. That's good. It's always good.
Let's see how it goes. If I start crying, just call me back.
Okay. Well, I mean, anybody who is a fan of White Sister kind of knows the story of the whole Greg Giuffria thing from the first album. We could talk a little bit about that, but I wanted to ask you, how did White Sister get together and give us that early background, prior to the debut album?
Well, we were just like, we were all from the same town, Burbank, California. And we, I ran into Rick Chaddock, the guitarist, and Gary, Brandon, keyboards. And I ran into them in town. Everybody knew who everybody was. Burbank's not a very big town. And, right over the hill from Hollywood, but in the valley. And I heard those guys, they invited me over to come and hear them play some songs in this little tiny, room behind the garage that this guy's dad let the drummer use and stuff. And I met those guys there, and then we just kind of hit it off. And then, we got out of that little room. I went into, I was 15 when that happened. Rick, I befriended Rick, and he started driving me around, and, because I didn't even have a license yet. But, we met in that little room, and then went through a couple of drummers, and then we found a little rehearsal space, and then started to put some stuff together, and we're kind of digging it and thought, hey, let's go play. So, we hit a couple of little clubs in Pasadena, and people seemed to like it. So we kind of kept it rolling. And we started getting kind of popular and doing some shows at the Troubadour and the Whiskey. And then the drummer at the time was kind of unhappy with all, how real it got, kind of fast, and as White Sister. And so that's when Rich Wright came into the picture. I was actually, I was his roommate. I moved in with Rich and his dad, and when I was finishing high school, and my parents moved out of state, and I wanted to stay in LA for obvious reasons. And so, Rich, I'm like, hey man, come, I know you play, let's come down to rehearsal. So Rich got in the band, and then it took that whole turn there. And then, we just kept digging in and the Hollywood scene and playing with, all the guys that took off and were just huge artists, Motley and Rat and Tesla. And we played with everybody. And then we finally got some attention and got picked up through Enigma EMI. I think that was like, what, 83 or something like that?
Okay. Well, I wanted to ask you about that because you said about, going up through the Hollywood scene. I mean, you were involved as with White Sister on kind of in that early era of the whole Sunset Strip scene, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah. And what a great time it was. And I see things online right now, and I hear people talking about what it was. And man, it was really something. I mean, you could go any weekend, Friday, Saturday, even Sundays, you could go down to Hollywood and just catch some great bands for like $5, almost on every given night. Somebody great was playing, and there was no, this is no internet or nothing. So you just had to kind of word of mouth, or it came out in like, BAM magazine or Music Connection or something, or, people would go and put their big posters up along the boulevard, and you could catch that if you happen to be driving down the street. But it was so word of mouth back then. It had a little different twist to it.
I was out there actually in 1992, so it was a little bit after the fact, but I mean, I could just imagine what it was like back in the day.
Yeah, it was crazy. I mean, there's so many good bands playing all over the place, and I mean, I recently stumbled on some old, what's cool about the internet, which I really not a fan of the social sites and stuff, but some of the stuff that pops up on Instagram and Facebook and the old tickets, the old show tickets that'll say like White Sister, Great White, Rat, Motley, and I'm like, oh, these are cool little things, and then I go visit my folks, and my mom, of course, did the mom thing and has like, the big scrapbook, and I'll be digging through there. Look at these tickets. Like, look, you could go see all these bands for like $6.
Yeah.
What the hell?
Well, who were some of the bands that White Sister played with at that time?
Who was, I can't remember the name of the band now. George Lynch's band, when he had that woman singing up front, and she was amazing. And I can't remember the name of the band. Gosh, what the heck was the name of that? Anyway, they were good.
Exciter, right?
Exciter. Yeah. Exciter, we played with them a lot. In fact, way back in the day, Rick Chaddock was taking, when we started out in White Sister, Rick would take lessons from Randy Rhoads, because he was 20 minutes away at this. Well, Randy's from Burbank too. Mm-hmm. So we had that connection. But Randy's music studio, his mom's place, Musonia, was 20 minutes away in North Hollywood. And so Rick would be in the one room with Randy, and I'd be down the hall trying to figure out what I was doing with Rudy Sarzo. So when Randy took off and got plucked by Ozzy, Rick was working with George Lynch a little bit too. So anyway, that was we played with George and his bands. Like I said, Great White, Rat. We did a show with Rat at the Roxy, where somebody just brought this up to me the other day. We did a Roxy show with Rat, and at the time they had what's his name from that? Mark Tureen from the Bullet Boys was playing guitar with them. They were so pissed off at him that they made him face his Marshalls to the wall, and they took the whammy bar off his guitar and hit it somewhere. But anyway, those shows were fun, and like playing with Motley at the Whiskey, and Tommy's popping into the dressing room borrowing drumsticks from Rich because he didn't have any. I mean, these guys were fucking broke. I mean, everybody was just doing their thing. In fact, I ran into Tommy a couple of years ago in the airport in Vegas after the SEMA show, the car show, and I walked up to him and talked to him for a few minutes, and that was kind of funny. I hadn't seen the guy in like for 40 years. But just early bands like that, and how everybody was it was interesting to see, who took off and how they changed, and or maybe they didn't, because we ran into Motley in the 90s, and we were working on the second Tattoo Rodeo record. We ended up in the same rehearsal building as them. And we were in there working on it was Motley was in the big room, and in the medium room was Kiss. Wow. And we were in the little room working out parts with Arthur Payson for the second Tattoo Rodeo record, and just talking to those guys years later and how things changed. And in fact, that was when Karabi was with them.
I was going to say, was that with Karabi? That was the best record they ever did without Vince Neil.
Let me tell you something. I parked, we were there for, a week, and you couldn't, it was a small place in Burbank, and you couldn't, once Motley took over the big room, you couldn't, I don't even know where Gene and Paul parked, but they took over this little like 10-car parking spot. You couldn't get anywhere near the place. I parked blocks away, and I'm walking down the street, and the fucking sidewalk's shaking. And as I get closer and closer, they're playing Helter Skelter in there, right? Mm-hmm. It is so loud. Literally, I stood there on the sidewalk was shaking, and I walk inside, and Gene is in the lobby talking to Rick, and Gene remembered us from the White Sister days, and I go, what the hell's going on in there? And Gene just looked at me and he goes, they just haven't grown up yet. And he goes, you want to see something? Come here. And he takes us into their room, and there's nobody in there. And he was, for some reason, the techs were in there, and there's Gene. Gene's got a little Ampeg, one speaker, thing set up. The drums are on the floor. Paul's got the little half stack going, and there was just minimal shit in there. And he goes, after you've done it for a while, you figure out that, your hearing is actually more important than what the hell. And the sound man was down the hall remote in another room because he couldn't even be in the same room.
Well, if you listen to that album that they did with Karabi, the production on it was incredibly massive also.
You know what? Honestly, that's probably my favorite Motley album.
Me too. That's what I said. It's the best album they ever did was without Vince.
Okay,
Vince
Neil. So you feel it too.
Oh, absolutely.
I love it.
Absolutely.
It sounds. In fact, you know what? I was just on a little road trip the other day, and I played that whole thing through and just cranked it. But it's great. But you know what I'm saying is, back playing with those guys back in the day when everyone's like borrowing shit because we're all broke, and then seeing those guys that many years later in like '94, and they're just freaking millionaires, and it was just like, damn. And you can either be jaded and pissed about it, or you can be like me and go, fuck yeah. You know what? They made it. They got
Oh
out
yeah,
of there.
no,
You know what I
absolutely.
mean?
Did
They
you
made
guys
it.
ever play with Legs Diamond at all back then?
No. We never played with Legs
Okay, because we
Diamond.
had
I think I
we had Roger on a couple of months ago from Legs Diamond. And I know they played in the early '80s a lot on the Strip too.
Yeah, no, we missed those guys. We didn't play with them at all. But it was I think the big ticket names were Motley and Rat, Rough Cut,
Rough Cut,
Tesla
yeah,
before
right.
they were I think Tesla before they were Tesla, they were what? City Kid
City
or
Kid.
something.
I think
City Kid,
Yeah.
yeah.
I got a T-shirt from the Chuck Landis's Country Club with
Really?
City
Oh boy,
Kid,
Wow.
City Kid, and White Sister, and some Zeppelin tribute or something. I
that's
don't know.
really cool.
But because we just moved recently we moved out of LA and we're up here in Idaho, and I rediscovered a lot of my tubs full of crap in storage, and I'm pulling this stuff out of them. I'm like, look at these old shirts. Like I haven't seen these things for like 30 years, but I saved a bunch of this old stuff, and it was kind of funny that to reminisce about that. And you asking me these questions now, it's like, yeah, I just kind of went through this, looking at all these old pictures and these old things that I happen to save. But yeah, the LA scene was a thing, man. There was a lot going on, and there was a lot of good bands on any weekend.
Did the name White Sister come from the Toto song?
It did.
I figured that. Okay.
Yeah, we were big. Toto was one of our favorite bands too. Me and the keyboard player, and we just grabbed the name and thought it was ridiculous. So we said, let's do that because people will just think, not know what to think of it. So, and it stuck, and it did. But yeah, it did actually come. And oddly enough, before we got Greg Jafria, we actually had Lukather come into rehearsal and check us out because we wanted to see if he would produce us. Yeah, he knew our drummer Richard Wright, rest in peace. I think they went to the same school or something at one point, and he knew him. So he had him come in. He came in and listened to a few songs, and then Jafria was a couple months after that.
Oh, okay.
Interesting.
Now, well, White Sister, I mean, had such a unique sound. The band, had the heavy guitars, almost that, early 80s metal sound in a way with the guitars, but you had the keyboards, great vocals, great harmonies. You mentioned Toto, and that's, the namesake of the band. What other bands were an influence for you guys?
Well, we were into pretty much the melodic stuff, Journey, Styx, Toto, anything melodic we kind of drew on. And I think Gary and I were kind of probably the mellower melodic guys. Rick wasn't listening to Styx, he was listening to Whitesnake and, heavier stuff. So it was kind of, the sound was sort of the sort of wake of us slamming these different styles together. Rich was a real heavy drummer. Rick was a real heavy guitarist. I was kind of in the middle of the road, and my singing was more lightweight, and Gary was very much more pop. He was really into Supertramp and Styx and that kind of thing, Toto. So I think the sound, we just crammed all these things together, and it wasn't really, we didn't sit down and map it out or anything. We just started playing, and that's what came out.
Now,
so
let's talk about this. I mean, if you're a White Sister fan, Tom and I are, and I'm sure a bunch of our listeners out there will be very familiar with you guys, but talk about the story of the meeting of Greg Jafria and how that all happened.
The Greg Jafria. Well, so I wasn't there, but I know what happened. Rick and Gary were literally at a gas station. I think it was in North Hollywood, and Greg pulled up in his little Ferrari, his little Dino Ferrari. It was like purple, like dark purple color. And Greg pulled up, and Gary recognized him right away, so they started talking to him. And they just had a little conversation, like, hey, what's up? And he was like, what are you guys doing? And they were, they just had a little 3-minute convo while they were filling up with gas. And then they ended up exchanging numbers, and Gary and Rick got Greg to come by rehearsal and check out some stuff. And he decided that he would do some demos with us, just some real quickie, cheapo demo tapes, which I also just rediscovered in my move, which is pretty funny. And so we went in and did some songs, and there were some good things that came out of it. And then he enjoyed working with us. We ended up getting our deal with Enigma. Initially, it was just going to be an EP, and Greg was on board, and we went in and started recording that, and then it got expanded into a full project after we recorded, I think, 4 or 5 songs, and then we turned it into a full album when we did the EMI deal, the Enigma EMI deal. So Yeah, Greg just like literally fell into our laps. Just met him at a gas station. Hey, come over and listen to what we got going. Okay. Yeah, he said okay. You know, I mean, he could have said no, and then I don't know what would have happened.
Right.
But
Sure.
being from his background with the keyboards and everything, because Rick was such a force. Rick was such a ball of sound anytime he plugged anything in, that it was an interesting influence with Greg, because coming from Angel with, dealing with that with Punky, but Greg still had the keyboard pretty prominent in there. It was kind of like the perfect fit, because he kind of knew how to tweak that.
Now, talk about the song Whips off the debut album. We know that was kind of a song that Punky Meadows had written, right? And
yeah,
I think it was
that's
actually
a Punky song.
Fergie Fredrickson actually had
Fergie sang that. Fergie's one of my vocal heroes. Rest in peace too, man.
Oh, yeah.
Fergie was a great dude. Fergie was kind enough to, when they were recording, right around the time they were recording that demo, and I think Ricky Phillips played bass on that, and Barry Brandt from Angel was on drums. There was I think they did 3 songs. I have them all somewhere. I just put them on my laptop. But Whips was one of them. And when we were doing some of our demos, they were working on that, and Fergie was kind enough to come in and work with me for a little while, and he gave me some pointers, which is really cool. Some of the stuff he told me, I still utilize today. So That was kind of cool. But yeah, Whips was on that demo. We loved it. And when we went to do the album, we're like, we want to do this song. So he and Punky said, sure, go ahead. And then we laid that one down, and everybody seemed to really like it. And there was another one on that same demo that those guys did called Troubleshooter, and that ended up on the second White Sister album.
If you're a big Fergie Fredrickson fan, did you ever listen to the Fredrickson Phillips album?
Yeah, I listened to all that stuff, and I still feel like Fergie. I don't know, but it's kind of maybe a weird thing to say, but I feel like, unfortunately he passed and we didn't get to hear even the best out of him yet. I think he still had some stuff in him that was. I mean, I don't think we heard his best still.
Yeah.
Well, because singers of that quality, I mean, he had obviously health issues that toward the end that we know about, but singers of that quality maintain and sometimes even get better in their late 50s, early 60s. And he was developing, like, if you listen, like the reason I said the Fredrickson Phillips a little later into the 90s, I thought that was his best vocal performance ever, because he had more balls and thickness to that high end of his voice.
Exactly, and I think that you're spot on, and that's why I'm saying that I think there was still some more stuff to come out of him.
Yeah,
before we lost him. Same way. But I get that. I mean, I'm a tenor, and I'm working my butt off in my little studio here, working on things, and my voice has changed dramatically over the last 8 to 10 years, and to that point of when you spend your life doing your songs, as a tenor vocalist in a certain area, and you kind of have to learn. I was talking to my wife about it the other day. It's kind of like we were watching the Lakers, and we were watching LeBron, and she goes, how does he still do that? And I said, well, I mean, you change. I mean, athletes, singers, people that do something for a long time have to change and modify what they're doing to keep doing it. So, you're going to go to your strengths, right? And then where your weakness is, you got to work on your weaknesses, but you got to focus and really lean on your strengths when you get older. And for me right now, and I think what you're going to hear in my new project is that, I'm not singing this stuff up in the Steve Perry stratosphere anymore. I brought it down a little bit, and you kind of have to. First of all, it didn't sound good when I try to do that anymore. But you know what I mean? You kind of grow up, and your music grows up, and you still got the drive, and you still got the energy, but you gotta adjust a little bit,
Now, if you listen to your body and you know your body and you're in tune with your body, you grow with it as you get older, and that's why a lot of singers I've noticed. We were just talking about Tony Martin, the guy that sang in Black Sabbath for a while. His solo album just came out. He's in his early 60s. He sounds better now than he did 30 years ago.
Right? I mean, listen to him, and he's just like, it's almost like he's coming into a groove right now.
He's incredible. I was just saying to my friends, like, I always liked Tony Martin, but, he's like 62. He sounds better than ever.
Yeah, and I think that a lot of that's you got to have a little luck with your health and everything too.
Right.
But and in my case, I mean, I haven't done a whole lot in the last 20 years, so I haven't been out there touring.
Right, you don't have that strain and that wear and tear on your voice with the road.
Yeah, I like to call it well preserved.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's move on to the Fashion by Passion album. The second album, Gary Brandon left the band at that point, right?
Yeah. We went in and did Well, we went to Canada and did this like a little part in a movie called Killer Party, and the song April that ended up on the second album. Gary played with us and he's singing on it and everything, and that song ended up in that movie. So we went to Canada and did this little like video in a drive-in. It was like a video within a movie thing,
Mm-hmm.
and then right after that, Gary bailed and. He wanted to go, he wanted to do his own thing. Gary was never really comfortable with two lead singer thing. I always loved it, and I personally am a big fan of bands that do that because I think that it just brings so many other dimensions to the band.
I agree. I feel the same. Especially when the two singers have diametrically opposed voices, it adds a lot.
Exactly. So like early Journey stuff with Raleigh and
the
Perry.
best.
I mean that's
the
that
best.
stuff.
To me, Journey was never the same once Raleigh left.
Yeah, so that dynamic, I really love that dynamic, and Night Ranger did it,
Yes.
and we were like managed by the same people as them for a while actually, and
yeah.
I just thought I just figured that I just like the dynamic, and as a performer, when you got some help live, that obviously helps you, when you're out there for an hour barking, it helps a little bit to have somebody else take over once in a while,
Sure.
So he just wanted to go do his own thing, so he took off, and we were writing stuff for the second record, so Rick and I ended up writing pretty much everything for the next record except for Save Me Tonight, which was probably our most well-known song off the second record. That ended up in the movie Fright Night, and people seem to latch onto that song.
Mm-hmm.
But that's Gary's singing on that. He's not playing piano on it, but he's singing on that one too. And then he wrote that with us, but the other ones were Rick and I. Okay. And so we did our best. We went in and, knocked some songs around, and we went in with producer Joel Goldsmith, and his father was the famous soundtrack guy, Jerry Goldsmith, who did like everything, Rambo movies and Star Trek and stuff. He was like a very famous film composer guy. So Joel was his son. And we went in the studio with Joel, and he produced and played keyboards on almost everything. And it was kind of a weird deal because we got some studio time at a place in North Hollywood, and the owner of the place was really adamant about, you can have all this time you want, but you have to record this song for me and put it on your album. So that's why that Jackie Wilson song's had the album, Lonely Teardrops, and that's why that freaking thing ended up.
Yeah,
so it couldn't be more out of place.
No, the only thing that could have been more out of place was the Beatles cover. Which where did that idea come from?
Rick and I just felt like doing a Beatles cover, and we had at the time we did that record, production wise, everything was really. Like Go West had come out, David Bowie.
Oh, you could hear it in this album. You absolutely.
Yeah, with Blue Jeans and the really, the drums with the quick attack on them and the noise gates and stuff. Power Station, remember that band?
Sure, absolutely.
So that whole sound was just big, and we kind of, looking back on it, it was a goofy thing to do, but we wanted that sort of sound. That's why the album sounds like that. It's got a lot of.
It's always remained like a mystery to me of what, like the sound of the first to the sound to the second. It's like almost two, except for A Place in the Heart and Save Me Tonight. All the other songs sound totally different than the first album.
Yeah, and the first album was analog and old school, and the second record was digital and a lot of cocaine. But I can tell you that it wasn't by me. I did not partake, but that was a lot of late night, Rick and I, let me tell you something. Rick and I were sort of famous among studio people and engineers and producers for we could hang, have a few beers, and we would stay there until the sun came up and work. And these guys, these engineers and these other people were in there like shoving things up their nose and doing it whatever they could. And we were right there with them toe to toe, and they would be done by sun's coming up and they're like asleep in the corner. And we're like, what's next? Because we were just going off adrenaline and dumb youth.
And youth,
but,
that's what I was going to say.
Yeah. Yeah. So, Rick and I, just want to sort of clear the air there. We never took part in that stuff, but there is definitely, just listen. Dude, they took two machines. They took two 24-track machines on that second record and hooked them together. So we had, you lose a track in between them because they have to talk to each other. But we still had 46 fucking tracks.
No, you could hear
and
it.
The producer was intent on using every one of them.
No, it's almost like two different. Other than like the voice recognition, it's almost like two different bands from album to album.
Yeah, it was two very different productions. I was never that happy with it.
Neither
there's
was
a song on there. there's a song, and hey, I don't blame you. There's the song "Fashion by Passion." Rick and I wrote
Oh my
"Fashion by
God, yeah.
Passion." It was a Zeppelin song. It had nothing but guitar and bass and me yelping through it, and it was killer. And it turned into a digital sampled, mid '80s cool thing to do song.
No, it sounded
And
like
I,
Britpop of the time, like a lot of the stuff that
yeah, and,
like.
and let me tell you something. Rick and I always wanted to go back and do that song the way it was, the way he wrote it, and the way he wrote that guitar part was just a Jimmy Page part. And
I could see that, yeah.
it was like, holy shit, here we go. And then it just turned into something we
But
didn't want.
but it came out sounding more like Ultravox or Spandau Ballet.
Yeah, yeah. And it just came out just digital and odd.
Yeah.
So, I go back and listen to that album. I do like to, I think Place in the Heart's a good song. Save Me Tonight, I think, is a good song. Until It Hurts. But the other ones can get a little squirrely.
Yeah, there's a couple of songs that are very reminiscent of the first album, but
Yeah.
there's about 5 of them that, yeah, it's a totally different.
Yeah,
band.
there's a few WTFs in there.
Yeah, oh, without a doubt, without a doubt. And how did you guys go from the label you were on onto the FM label? How did that come about?
Oh, well, after the first album, it was, EMI wanted nothing to do with us. They just, threw us out there, and I don't even know why they signed us, to be honest with you. We got like no support from that. And our manager at the time got us hooked up with that deal to do the FM Revolver deal. And, he was financing us being in the studio by placing our songs in movies. So that's why that's why there's so many White Sister songs, and, Halloween and Stella and Kid. We had songs in like 4 or 5 movies. Save Me Tonight was in, Fright Night, because he was licensing our songs out, getting a few grand, and then putting us in this, putting it in the studio budget so we could keep going and making that record.
Okay, I got you.
So then we took off, and so it was a really tiny deal with FM Revolver, and then we went to the UK and we played over there for about three weeks, I think. We went over there and played with. We've got a little van and followed FM around, the band FM.
Yes, yeah.
And opened for them just from all the way from Wales all the way to Scotland and back down. It was like ridiculous, but yeah, wow. It was an adventure for sure.
Now, the band carried on till about 1989 or so. Did you ever record any more material?
Well, White Sister did not record any more material, but interestingly, and again, as I've been sort of going through the archives after I moved and kind of like finding things and rediscovering things, there are probably a dozen songs that we used to play live back in the early days before we got signed that people loved. They were like one of the songs that we never recorded was called More Than Just a Friend. It was very Journey-esque, very upbeat song. And it was probably, people sang along to it. And I have no idea why it didn't end up on the album. We have a demo. We have 2 demos of it. But there are songs that were written and demoed, some of them demoed, that never saw the light of day. And I'm still trying to figure out what I want to do about that, because recreating, releasing them in the format they're in is probably not going to happen because they're so rough. But recreating them with, Rick's gone, and he was the heartbeat of that thing, and Rich is gone, and so, I mean, I lost half of both bands, Tattoo Rodeo and White Sister, when I lost those brothers. So it's not. People ask me a lot if I want to, go record some new stuff or play, and I'm like, no, I'm not going to play, with that name over my head ever again, because it's just not the same. And but the music, I don't know what I'm going to do about it. I do have about 4 big cardboard boxes full of reel-to-reel tapes of stuff that I saved out of a storage place a few years ago, and there are some things on there. There's some archives that I may be able to digitize, and then I could go in and use, Rich's drum tracks and Rick's guitars, and maybe sort of clean up some of those old things and release them, because I think that would be kind of cool. Even if I just grabbed 4 or 5 of them and did an EP, I mean, I think that would be a lot of fun.
Oh yeah, that would be great.
We don't write like that anymore. We went, when White Sister got back together in 2008, and we went over and did the Firefest Festival in the UK, and we hadn't played those songs since like the late 80s. Here we are, 20 years later, let's play these songs. So we went and got a buddy of mine to play the drums, and then we weren't sure we could even pull it off. So that's why we had a second keyboard player on that gig, and we had a great time. And then we started getting offers. Frontiers were just throwing us offers and things, and we just didn't want to. We were of the attitude like, look, we had a great time. It was a lot of fun. But if you want us to put an album together right now, we're not going to write songs like we did, 25, 30 years ago. It's going to sound totally different. And I'm not sure that would have been a true White Sister album,
Right. Sure.
Then we came back the next year and did the show again. And, we had a great time, but we just turned down all the deals. And then Rick and I started working together and writing again to put something together that we didn't know what it was going to be called. And then unfortunately he got sick and we lost him in 2012.
The problem with resurfacing a name from the past is that the musicians can't write or don't want to write like they did 25 years ago. But the fan base is such that they're totally unaccepting of anything that doesn't sound like it was from 1986.
Exactly. Like, what do you mean you're 59 years old and you're not going to write
That's what I say all the
like
time. Right. I try to explain that to my son all the time. We were just discussing like the new Iron Maiden album. It doesn't sound like Number of the Beast. Well, when they wrote Number of the Beast, they were 25. Now they're 64. How could it sound the same way?
Yeah, it's not going to.
Right.
It's not.
And it shouldn't.
When we were mixing the first White Sister record, I turned 21 in the studio. Okay, I just turned 59. So no, I'm not going to write like that. I don't think.
And it wouldn't be natural if you did. It would be forced.
Yeah. So I think the best thing to do would be to just to go. I'm working with Gary Brandon a little bit, talking to him, and like if I can dig up some of these tapes and they survive storage, digitize them, and maybe we can pull a few things out and throw them out there. I think it would be a lot of fun.
Well, let's talk about. You talked about how things change. Musicians they get older. They different writing and stuff. But let's talk about after White Sister was over. Tattoo Rodeo was born. Now I know Tom is a huge Tattoo Rodeo fan. I'm going to let him kind of talk about this.
Right, Tom. I like how you guys divided up the two albums. That's cool.
Well, Mark kind of favors the White Sister period more, and I very strongly favor the Tattoo Rodeo period more.
Well, they're so different, and I think what's funny is a lot of people I've talked to don't really hold both of them in the same level. It's either one or the other, which is cool. I mean, they're very different. Rick and I decided to after we did the second record and we did that thing in Europe. I think that was 80 in the UK. That was 87. I remember it was right before my first son was born. That was 87, and we got home and we started writing a little bit, and we thought, you know what? We got to change it up. We've been doing it since 1980 or something. And we thought, this is, we got to switch something up. Gary's gone, the keyboard player we took with us to the UK took off, and it was like, what do you want to do? So we just started writing songs, and we went in and actually demoed a couple of things with Greg. You just reminded me of this. We reconnected with Jafria, and we went into the studio and demoed a couple of songs. And at the time, he was putting everything together for Jafria, and he had some backing from Gene Simmons, I believe, at the time. And he was playing our demos for Gene. And I think didn't that first Jafria record, wasn't that Simmons?
The first House of Lords, I think, was on.
First House of Lords.
Oh, maybe it's House of Lords. You're right. It was House of Lords. So anyway, we were doing we did some demos with Greg, and then it kind of fizzled out, and it wasn't going very well, but. He had got us some studio time in this little place in North Hollywood. The guy that was running it was an engineer, and he was in there working with Paul Sabu. And so we got in there and started doing some demos in there, and working with Paul as an engineer and Ron Bloom as a producer. And then we're like, hey, this sounds pretty good. So we started putting it together, putting songs down. We put a few songs down. They sounded pretty good. We had some people coming in, listening to it. They liked it. We were mixing something, and Carmine Peace came in, and he was working on. They were actually trying to figure out what to do with Blue Murder at the time. And I remember I had really short hair. I was a little overweight, and we're in the studio recording, and I looked like nobody standing there. And he goes, "Whoa, who's singing?" And they point at me. "Oh, that's Dennis." And he goes, "Oh, cool." And that was like, that was it. He's like, "Fuck that guy." Who is that guy? So I thought it was kind of funny. And but anyway, the good thing was he liked what he was hearing. So we went in there and started working on that. We decided to change the name, and the name actually came from one night at the Whiskey on Sunset Boulevard. We were upstairs, and somebody was playing. I don't know. This was like 89, 90 or something, and you just look downstairs, and somebody said, "Nah, look at everybody's covered in tattoos down there," you know. And Rick goes, "Yeah, it's a tattoo rodeo."
It's a great
We're
name.
like, "Oh,
that's
a cool name.
It's
Let's
a
do
great
that."
name. Yeah,
Which was really funny because at the time none of us had any tattoos, so none of us looked anything like Tom. With the name stuck, and then we put it together and we started shopping things around, and we couldn't get any action. We did a couple of showcases. Everybody was kind of We did a show at the Whiskey. I don't know if you guys have ever been to the Whiskey.
No, we're
but the
East
stage,
Coast guys. No,
the stage is really like, I mean, you can cram like, I don't know, 400 people in there, maybe 5.
Mm-hmm.
And the stage is kind of tall. And like if you walk up to the stage to see a band, you can kind of put your arms out at your chest and put your elbows down and just be like that height. You know, it's kind of tall.
Okay.
And it's narrow. So everybody always just took the drums down and the next guy come up because it's small, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we booked a show and had record companies come down, and we were opening for Vixen. And this just came to my memory the other day because I think Vixen just splashed something on social media about switching bass players or something. So I'm like, oh fuck, I remember this now. Vixen did their sound check, left all their shit up, and our manager's down there like yelling at their manager, like, what are you doing? Like, get rid of the drums. They're like, no, we're not touching anything. So they left us enough room. Rich had his drum seat and his back up against their drum riser, like literally right there. he had his drums down, and in front of the bass drum there was enough room for me to stand, like maybe 20 inches. I got big feet. I got size 12s. So I had like 20 inches to the edge of the stage. It was like, how are we going to do this, you know? So one of the techs goes out to the truck and gets the Anvil road case for Michael's Hammond B3 and the Leslie amp, you know, and they roll the road case in, and it's exactly the height of the stage. So they took a bunch of tape and just taped it to the front of the stage so nobody would push it. Yeah. And my mic stand was out on that, so I could stand in front of the drum. And we were so pissed off. I remember not ever being that angry before and having to do a show. I just wanted to leave. I was so fucking pissed. So we do our sound check, we do our thing. We're all upstairs just cursing and throwing shit. We go down there, and I guess we were so pissed off that it carried out on the music, because we did a raging 40 minutes and got out of there, and we got signed. Somebody from Atlantic did show up, and that's the night we got signed.
Wow, that's interesting.
So Atlantic picked it up. We finished the record, and then we were lucky enough through our management, because we were managed by Camel Z, and Camel Z had Night Ranger. So Jack Blades was doing the Damn Yankees thing with Ted and Tommy Shaw. So, you know, they knew somebody, we knew somebody, and they said, hey, you know, jump out on the second half of their tour. So that's how we landed on that Damn Yankees tour with Bad Company too. So we'd go out and do a little 30-minute set, and that was really good for us because we were getting a little bit of radio play with Been Your Fool. And then when we went out and did the tour with them, we got, you know, everywhere we could. Rick and I we'd grab acoustics, and like the day of the show, we'd go to whatever the morning radio show place was. We'd go there and, you know, play live. We'd play a couple songs live and have a good time and get more people to go. And I mean, we'd play at these, they were playing a lot of sheds, a lot of amphitheaters on that tour. This is in the summer of 91. They would pack those places, and if we could get a couple thousand people there to watch us, we were happy, you know.
What leg of the tour were you on? Like, what area of the country did you guys play with them?
Oh gosh, we hopped on in Colorado. We hopped on in Colorado and went all the way towards the East Coast, and then we went all the way back to the West Coast, and we were out there for 3 months.
Oh wow!
And then we went all the way started in Colorado, made our way all the way to New York, down to Florida, and then back all the way over across to L.A. Northern California, Southern California. I think Arizona maybe is where. No, we went all the way back across to Connecticut. That's right. Wow. I think Groton, Connecticut was our last show.
Because I saw that Bad Company Damn Yankees tour, and maybe I saw you guys, maybe I missed you guys. I'm not sure. I don't remember.
Oh man, we were on early. It was still light out when we were on. You know, it's one of those things. But you know, we did a little 30 minutes and got out. But it did a lot of good. We got some radio on that. We got a lot of really good experience. You know, and that was the first time I had gone out and sang everything. You know, White Sister, like I said, we were splitting vocals, and so that was an interesting thing for me to learn how to, you know, keep everything in tune and in shape to be out there for 40 minutes a night. by myself. And so it was a learning process. Believe me, it was like we went out there the first night and we played this little arena, and there's a bunch of people there for some reason to see us too. And it sounded like, I mean, I've never heard anything sound so amazing in my life. And then our manager came up to us the next night and said, "It's going to sound different tonight, boys." We're like, "What happened? What happened?" And they said, "Well, the other bands were watching you play and they've had enough of you already." So they shut us down and gave us like half the PA after that.
Oh, really? That's something.
Yeah. They're just like, "No, fuck these guys." So turn them down. So, but it was a lot of fun, and everybody on that tour was great. You know, Ted is an interesting dude.
Ted was Ted.
Ted was Ted. He's very, very different guy. Behind closed doors, he's a very different person than he, when somebody opens a door and somebody else might be listening, he turns on that other person. But he's a very interesting dude, and everybody in both of the bands were very, very cool to us, and we really learned a lot going out on that thing. And then we got off of that tour and came home, and we couldn't get arrested. Nobody gave a shit, so we went in and recorded another record, and Atlantic kind of fumbled us at the time. Atlantic was having a hard time with rock bands back then. I mean, they fumbled us, and they fumbled. Foreigner had just come out with that new singer, Johnny Edwards. Man, that guy could wail.
That guy was
really good. They fumbled that, and they fumbled, I think Badlands was out about a little bit before us then too.
Yes, they dropped the ball on Badlands too. Totally.
Yeah, and it was just
album.
like
they got zero promotion on that second record.
So then you know exactly what happened to our record. It was the same thing. I mean, we actually ran into those guys at Atlantic in New York, and we were talking to them. And I don't even know why these companies bothered signing us. They just didn't do anything. And we went into New York to do promotions in '91 before that tour, and we were in a waiting room going to go into this conference room, and I had no idea who was in the conference room. It turns out it was their big, quarterly meeting they do with Ahmet Ertegun, and all these people are in there. The door opens and Paul Rogers comes out with Kenny Jones. We're like, "Hey, what's up? It's cool to meet those guys. What are you doing here?" And Paul Rogers looks at me and goes, and I never met him. I'm just like starstruck, trying not to drool on his shoes, right? And he goes, "What are you guys doing?" I go, "We're going to go in there and do a couple songs," because he saw our guitars. He's like, "What are you doing?" "We're going to go and play a couple songs." He goes, "In there?" I go, "Yeah." He just shook his head and he goes, "Good luck," and he walks away. I'm like, holy shit, what did we get ourselves into now? Well, that's going to make or break a career. If you go in there and sound like shit, you're done anyway. Right?
Absolutely.
Turns out it didn't matter because they weren't going to promote us anyway. But yeah, we were young and dumb enough to, we did 2 songs for them acoustically in their conference room, just a cappella, just no mics or nothing. "Hey, nice to see you guys. Okay, great. See you. We're Tattoo Rodeo." And we walk away, and it was like, okay. And it went really well. I mean, we played really well, but just like Badlands and Foreigner at the time, they just weren't doing anything. So we went in and recorded the second record, and I don't even know how we got Arthur Payson to work with us, but he worked with us, and we did that second record, and we got a deal through BMG Mausoleum on that one. And it was a lot of groundwork we just did on our own, and then we couldn't get a tour, and that was, of course, when everything was getting stomped on by the grunge movement, so it was kind of over before it started,
The second record is anything you've ever done. The second record of Tattoo Rodeo is my favorite. It's every song.
Oh, thanks, man.
I absolutely love that record. The songwriting is tremendous, and it's got a lot of the influences that I grew up in the '70s. So there's a lot of things. I hear Blackfoot. I hear Allman Brothers. I hear some of your vocal phrasing is similar to Greg Allman's. The songwriting and where did you? I wanted to always ask you, Michael Lord. Where did you hook up with him? That guy was tremendously talented.
Michael, and by the way, Michael was a huge, huge fan of that music of the '70s, which is why he lugged around that real Hammond B3 and that amp, and God, what a pain in the ass. But he loved the Allman Brothers. Michael, we met through a friend of a friend. He was in another local band around the LA area, and we were looking for. When we wanted to switch gears and do Tattoo Rodeo, we were looking for somebody, and we plucked him out of this melodic rock band that wasn't going anywhere. I can't even remember the name of them, but we started working with him, and we hit it off right away, and he kind of saw what we were doing. And he was in a band that was really a lot more melodic than us, and he wanted to do more of the little Southern rock, little Allman Brothers. That was where his heart was. So he fit right in, And so that's how that thing fell together. And Rick and Michael and I wrote those songs, and Rick kind of switched gears and really went to some, cleaner, smaller amps, and everything was really changing at that time.
I actually thought the second Tattoo Rodeo was better than the first, and most people don't agree with that. But I thought I liked it even better.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I mean, they're very different. I mean, I think the second one is really more organic.
Yes.
We set the drums up in this studio in Burbank, in this big, it's one of those big places you could put an orchestra in. We shoved the drums in the corner, and they just sounded great. When the drums sound great in the room and you haven't done anything yet, it's going to have a nice, tone. So we just went for more of a natural, less overdubbed, a little less polished thing on the second one with Arthur Payson, and I think I think it matched the songs.
That album had a really good production, really nice big fat production. But I thought even better than the major label one before it.
Yeah, thank you. And that was Arthur. That was Arthur in a big studio, just like, and nobody telling us what to do again. It was just, here, how should this sound? He goes, what do you guys want to sound like? And Rick brings in, when the levee breaks, and goes, hear this? I want the drums to sound like this.
Yeah, and it does.
like
it does.
Nobody's ever said that before, right?
Yeah.
But we got about halfway there with the drums, and who's ever going to, sound like Bonham? But it does that. He got our point. Like, we wanted that natural sound. I mean, we used a Mellotron on that record. Yep. Michael rented a Mellotron for the song Charity has Mellotron, little flute thing going on in it, and I played a little harp on that album. And I remember we were doing Can't Keep My Woman Down. I brought my little Fender Champ amp that I've had since I was 15 years old. I brought it in to play the harmonica through because I figured it would sound good through there, And I dared Rick to play his guitar solo through it. He's got 6 different beautiful amps lined up in this room, and I go, I dare you to play through that little Fender Champ. And we used to joke that, do you guys have the Guitar Center stores out there on the East Coast?
Oh yeah.
Okay, so Guitar Center used to put this advertisement out, this little pamphlet, and they'd have the Fender Champ on the front. Fender Champ used by Zeppelin, and we're like, nobody from fucking Zeppelin ever lifted one of those Fender. You know what I mean? It's like, what are you talking about? So I used to tease Rick. I go, listen, man, Jimmy Page, Guitar Center says Jimmy Page used the little Fender amp, and I just keep messing with him. So finally, just to shut me up, he plugged into it and played that solo, and it was perfect, and he kept it. So that solo, Rick solo on, God, what is it? Can't Keep My Woman Down?
Can't Keep My Woman Down had the vocal, that vocal effect. It sounded like it was through a megaphone or something.
Yeah. And I think that's the one he played.
Yeah, that's the song.
We kept his guitar solo through the Fender Champ. Yeah. Oh man! See, you guys are bringing up memories, but these are happy, so I'm okay right now.
That's good stuff.
The song "Train" is another huge favorite of mine on this. I mean, I could go through every song on this album for 15 minutes. I won't, but I could.
Oh man, that's cool. I appreciate that. I love those songs, and I kind of felt like when I was singing them, I felt like I fell into a vocal area that I was really comfortable with, and I think it showed in the recording. It just kind of flowed, and it wasn't a ton of takes, and I just felt like I was in a happy place singing those songs, and they were just really comfortable to me. And we went out and did some shows after that, and we got a bass player for that. So we were doing, for a couple of years there, we were doing shows just around the LA area, and I was out front singing for the first time. There's not a whole lot of video or anything of that, unfortunately.
No, there isn't. I was actually looking for it the other day. There was nothing.
Yeah. Every once in a while I check YouTube and I'll go, I wonder if anybody found anything. Put it up there.
No, there's nothing. I already looked.
I got a grainy video of us doing Every Picture Tells a Story with Robin McCauley, which
really?
I'm trying to figure out if I can clean it up enough to post it. But that was kind of fun. Yeah,
I thought the best song on the album, see if you agree with me or not, was Chamber of Mary's Gun.
Oh man, I think Chamber of Mary's Gun is probably the most, Rick and I used to call it our most grown-up song, because I felt like, well, thank you, man. We Rick wrote probably 75% of that song.
Okay.
And I just when I listen to it now, even I go, look at that. We did a tune where we didn't have to go bombastic, and I didn't have to sing crazy, and but it connects, I think, and. We didn't do a bunch of takes of it, and I think Rick's solo, that's one of his best guitar solos on that thing. It's just so beautiful, and the song had this little vibe. It found its little place, and it is probably one of my favorite songs off there as well.
It's got a depressing vibe, but it also has a vibe. I've used this song when I've gone running. Also, it's got a real adrenaline kick, but it's also got a very depressing vibe to it too.
I think. Charity, to me, the depression comes in when I listen to Charity.
Oh, Charity too, yeah.
Because Rick wrote a lot of those lyrics, and he was just done with the news and all the bullshit going on in the world, and definitely came through in that song.
No, it's a great piece of work. The biggest problem with this was that it was at not a great time for this type of music.
Yeah, we unfortunately there's dozens of bands that came out with some stuff that I think
Yeah.
was interesting, and it just got squashed. Just, I mean, it was just a big giant Godzilla squash. It was over.
And just to give Michael Ward a little plug, his solo record is terrific also.
Yeah, Michael's doing really well. He's actually he's doing some writing now and theme music, and he's got a couple of TV shows under his belt. And if you've seen that game show, The Wall,
Yes.
It looks like a giant pachinko machine. That's Michael's music.
He's a really nice. I corresponded with him years ago when I got when his first solo record came out. I think he was just distributing it himself, and I got it from him. And,
Yeah,
very very nice guy to talk to, and he actually did a cover of Chamber of Mary's Gun on his solo album.
yeah, he did. He did, which surprised the hell out of me when I saw
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Like, oh, hey, look at that.
Yeah.
No, Michael's good. We're still in contact. I don't talk to Gary much anymore. He's got his own little life going on, but Michael and I, we stay in contact.
Yeah.
In fact, Michael's running the Tattoo Rodeo Instagram page. That's him.
Now, after the Tattoo Rodeo days, you mentioned, you touched on it before, White Sister had a little bit of a reformation in a way. You played the Firefest shows 2008, 2009. But now, fast forward ahead to 2015, you put out a solo album simply titled I. So, and you mentioned Paul Sabu earlier. Talk a little bit about your solo album.
Like I said, Rick and I were working on some songs when he got sick, and in 2012, and those are not what ended up on my album, but I've still got a couple of tunes that he and I did that I don't know what I'll ever do with. But I kept writing by myself, and I would come up with these pieces, and I'd put them on my phone, and I'd go, sit on the coffee table and talk to him, and he was in bad shape on the couch, and I would play him these songs and look, man, I need you to help me finish these. Get up off that couch and let's go record these. I was trying to get them going, but I just kept writing and writing as a sort of a means of therapy, really. And then when he passed at the end of 2012. It hit me pretty hard. I mean, this is a guy that 30 plus years was my best friend, and then we'd gone through so many music adventures together. Like I said, when I met him, I was 15, and he used to drive my ass. I mean, he took me to my first concert, which was Van Halen. And he took me in his little mini truck, and he drove me down there, and I was only 15, but it was a big loss for me in a lot of ways. So I kind of shut down for a little while, and then my wife Denise and Rick's wife, kind of encouraged me to you should go finish your record, and I think Rick would want you to do that. So I buckled down, and around, I don't know, it was probably end of 2013 going into 2014, I started just working up these songs, and I kind of reconnected with Paul Sabu, who, like I said, worked on the first, he engineered the first Tattoo Rodeo record for us. And geez, I hadn't talked to him in years, and he just fell back into my life, which was a really interesting thing after I lost Rick. Oh, look, here's another guitar player that sings, and what are you doing? You know what I mean? So we kind of connected and started throwing music back and forth. And what I did was I wrote all my songs on this Tascam, tabletop Tascam digital workstation that does 8 tracks, I think, at a time. And I started I was demoing up all my songs, and I'm certainly not an engineer, and I'm trying to get all these down into a format that somebody can make sense out of. And I would record stuff and send it to him, and he was like, we just decided let's do this. So totally independent. I wrote everything. Paul, the one unfortunate thing I think about the record is that it doesn't have a real drummer on it, which, I just couldn't afford or I had no means to pull that off. So that's why the drums are programmed. But I think Paul did a pretty good job of faking it on that. But so Paul programmed the drums and played all the guitars and some of the keyboards, and I played some of the keyboards, and Eric Ranyo played some keyboards, and wrote everything, and he mixed it all, and we put it together, and it was really truly not just throwing the word out there, but it really was therapy. I mean, I would, I had a day job, and I would do my thing and be out the door by 8 a.m, and I'd come home at night around 6 or 7 and, do my thing. The kids are older, and didn't need me as much. And everybody would go to bed, and I'd sit in this little corner of my house in Burbank. I had a little corner where just a desk and a little small place to write and work. And I'd put headphones on and just work. I think doing that and writing those songs and getting it out of my system was really good for me mentally, and helped me get through all that bullshit, losing Rich and then losing Rick, 6 years later losing Rick. And the whole thing was just such a mind trip. So I had a lot of dreams about, I kept having these reoccurring dreams where we would be loading up for a show, in LA, and Rick was there loading up the truck, and I'm like, how is he here? But in the dream, if I told anybody he was there, he would disappear.
Wow.
Like, do you see him? Then he'd be gone. So I could interact with him, but I couldn't tell anybody I saw him. So I kept having those dreams, and it was really starting to bug me. And I wrote the song "So Good to See You" for him about those dreams. And as soon as I finished the song, the dream stopped, which is really was total mind blow for me.
Yeah.
So I know it did me some good to if anything to do that. You know what I mean? And I was really happy to have that opportunity to just put that together and get that album out there. I wasn't expecting anything of it. I wasn't expecting to sell thousands of copies or anything. I just wanted it out there. And
Right.
most people seem to like it. I didn't see a lot of bad press on it, but it was it kind of re-energized me, and it kind of got me out of that rock I was hiding under.
Yeah. I wanted to basically now fast forward a little bit further ahead to the last few years, and you have a new project now, which is titled 1206. So let's talk about that.
1206 project. That's it's now been about 5 years in the making. It's crazy how long it's taken with the pandemic slammed in the middle of it. It really messed it up. But I befriended this gentleman named Stan Cotey, and Stan Cotey is a brilliant engineer, guitarist, keyboardist who used to play back in the late 80s. He played with Kevin Gilbert from Toy Matinee.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Giraffe.
So hey, look at that guy. Look at you go.
Yeah.
And Giraffe, that's right. A lot of people don't know that. I'm impressed. So anyway, Stan hasn't been doing any music, at all since I think the early mid 90s. And I kind of befriended him through my day job, and we kind of connected and just started talking. And he is he's brilliant. I can't say it enough. I think the quote, I found an old email the other day because I wanted to see how freaking long we've been working on this project. And one of the first things I said to him was in an email, and my wife was cracking up, is, Stan, you're going to have to dumb it down if you're going to work with me. Because this guy's music theory, he's just, he's kind of more of the prog rock world, right?
Yes.
Giraffe was kind of that thing.
Giraffe were way ahead of their time.
Yeah. Kevin Gilbert was like, what a mind. He was
I love
definitely
Kevin Gilbert. Yeah.
born in Monroe. If you love Kevin Gilbert, Tom, I think you're going to like this 1206 album because it does not sound like White Sister. It does not sound like Tattoo Rodeo. It sounds a little bit like me, DCD, but it's kind of poppy, and it's got a couple twists of prog in there, but it's very, very different.
Well, that's what Kevin Gilbert was all about. It was pop with a proggy twist to it.
Yeah, and a lot of that stuff is Stan was doing that with him back in the day. So it's that's where this all came from. So nice. Stan had some stuff recorded, and I said, well, send me what you're working on. So he sent me some things that it just blew my mind. It was like I don't even know how to. It was like maybe Marillion. Some of it sounded like Marillion. Some of it sounded like Mike and the Mechanics.
Nice.
A lot of chord changes, a lot of melodic stuff, no vocals, just music. So I took a bunch of this stuff and I started editing and piecing it around with melodies. And I threw some vocals on a couple of things and sent them back to him, and he loved it. So we just started working on stuff. But the problem is that I had a day job. He has a day job. He works for Fender Music, and he's an R&D at Fender, and he's running around the country hot rodding Fender amps and delivering them to the Edge and what's his name? I can see his face. The other hot guitarist out there, the guy with the glasses and the suit on. What's his name? Joe
Bonamassa?
Joe Bonamassa. Thank you. He's, Stan has hot rodded all his amps for him and everything. And so he was really busy. So everything took a long time, forever. We just finished mastering the thing. In fact, I was sitting here a couple hours ago listening to some of the mastered pieces in my little room here, but we just finished mastering. And I still have the website up in front of me on CD Baby when you guys called me, because I'm trying to figure out how to get the ISRC codes to embed in the mastering before I submit it to CD Baby. So I'm going back and forth to these guys. But it's called 1206. I can't tell you why yet, because I think we're having a contest to guess why it's called 1206.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. Where did that name come from?
I can't tell you.
You got to wait, live with everybody else and find out.
Okay.
But it's kind of cute. It's a little cute. It's just Stan and I, and we brought in a couple of drummers on some songs. We got a drummer name. The first single is called Have You Ever Seen the Real Me? And I did write it about a woman that I used to work with that really wanted nothing to do with me until she saw my videos online, and all of a sudden she was my best friend. So it's about those people in your life that no matter what you do, doesn't have to be a musician, but you know what I mean? You won't give you the time of day until they find something out about you that they like, and all of a sudden they want to be your buddy. It's like, yeah, fuck you. Where were you last month?
Exactly.
You know? So Real Me is about that. And I had a buddy of mine, Frank Reyna, played drums on that. Another tune I did, which I'm not going to tell you yet until we're not recording. I had Mark Van Zysen from the River Dogs play drums on it. He's another Burbank guy. He played drums on that, and another buddy, Nick Amoroso, played on another song. And Jason Montgomery, who played with White Sister in the UK for those Firefest shows, I got him to do a song. And the other 3 songs I played, which I've never done. I've played drums my whole life, but I've never recorded. So that was kind of fun. So it was kind of neat to get out on a couple of songs. And it's really weird to listen to a song back with you playing the drums and the bass on it.
Right.
It's like, hey, it's physically impossible. How did that happen? So it really gave me a lot of respect for, everything that Wolf Van Halen just did, playing everything on his record. It's like, holy shit. You go in and do something, a little piece. I mean, I just did 2 instruments and that guy played everything. It's like, wow, that's impressive. So, but I think that project, I think you guys will like it.
I think I'll like it. Yeah. With the,
I think a lot of people
Gilbert
that like that little twist. Yeah. If you like the Gilbert stuff, it's not quite like Giraffe. It's more like Kevin Gilbert's stuff. So I think if you like that, you'll like it. I'm just pounding into everybody's brain that it's not. Don't expect White Sister or Tattoo Rodeo, because that's not what it's going to sound like. You're going to be disappointed if you think that's what's going to come out of the speakers. Fun with it. I had a lot of fun with it. I learned a lot. He pushed me really hard. He's very schooled and very knowledgeable, and I'm just like the rock guy from LA that pounding 8 notes on the bass. Like, what are we doing? How do I play that?
Yeah.
So he really got a lot out of me. I played all the bass on everything, and I learned a lot from him, and had to really bring it to just be in the same room with him.
Yeah. Will this be released digitally or as CD or
yes.
physical product?
Yeah. So we're doing it totally indie, but like I said, we're going to go through CD Baby likely and just let them do the digital distro on it. And, we'll make a few hundred CDs because some people still like that.
We do too.
How do you guys feel about CDs?
CD.
Oh, it has to be CD.
Yes.
I'm a collector on top of being a music nut, and I don't
so
feel
you got to have the physical copy.
I have to have the physical copy because I grew up in the 60s and the 70s, and I still read booklets. I have to know the musicians' names. I have to know who produced it. I don't feel like I could digest the music until I have it in my hand and I'm reading the booklet, and it's just a thing. I guess it's an age thing. I don't know.
No, hey, I'm
it's funny because I was talking to my daughter about it last night. I don't know, something came on. We were watching something, and something came on TV about a record, and she goes, what was the big deal with the records? And I go, Summer, my daughter, by the way, sings a verse in one of the songs that's on this new record, which is kind of cool.
Oh, cool.
She's 33 now. Shit, I'm old. Yeah, she's 33. She goes, what was the big deal with the records? And my wife looked at her and I looked at her. She goes, what? I said, you guys really, your whole generation, everybody, that's younger now, really missed out on that experience.
Yes.
And you can try to tell them what it was, but to go buy the record and to bring it home and put that thing on as carefully as you could, so not to get your fingerprints all over it.
Absolutely.
And then sit there and read the freaking cover and the inside. Every time you put it on, it was like, reading a cereal box, like, when you're a kid, like, I got to read this. I got to know. I want to know what's going on.
And I'm still like that. I'm 63 and I'm still like that. And I grew up in the 60s. I treated music like that in the 60s. I still treat it like that to this day.
And you know what I mean? It's like hard to explain to somebody what that was because they don't know. And it's, unless you did it. Right. Unless you sat down there and did it, and everybody that's just had nothing but digital now in their lives just don't get it. So, but it's a little piece of magic. I used to go to bed and listen to the radio when I was going to sleep, and I had the old analog radio in the corner of my room and the little blue light glowing on it. That would make like a night light. That was how you call in and request a song and sit there and wait in front of the radio. That's from my solo album, Heard It on the Radio. That's what that whole line was about. The blue light glows from my radio. Oh. It was about just laying there in bed, maybe with headphones on or something, and that little light was glowing from your old, Marantz or something in the corner, and it was like magic. And then when your shit got played, if you asked for them to play a song or something, it was awesome. we're in a different world now. Everything's instant gratification, so that doesn't hold even any interest to people anymore. But
do press
damn
those
it, guys, we
CDs
can hold on to
people
it.
buy them.
Yeah.
There
Well,
are
I mean,
a lot of people that are into music the way we are that absolutely want a physical copy.
Yeah, and I'm gonna, we're gonna press up like maybe a couple hundred or something, and that's all we're gonna sell probably. But that I'm gonna do it because people want it.
500 is usually what like the little indie labels do. 500 press on the CD.
Yeah, well, that's what I did, and I got probably half of them left in my closet. So,
all right, so do 3. Do 300.
Everybody went. Let me tell you something. When I released in 24 hours, the next morning, it was on 25 websites streaming. To go back to my comment earlier about I can do this by myself. I don't need a record company's help to pirate my music.
Right.
It was on 25 sites in 24 hours.
Oh yeah, I believe.
And I talked to my publishing guy, and he goes, "Yeah, don't even." He goes, "You can try to get them off of there, but they'll just pop back up."
Right.
I'm like, that's when I gave in. And at the time when I released that in 2015, I didn't even. I think they give you, like on CD Baby, and you go to these sites, they give you a checkbox. Do you have digital distribution? Yes or no? And then back then it was like maybe a dozen of them. Now it's like 24. But you check all these boxes, and I checked like the 2 or 3 of the main ones that said everybody else can fuck off. Well, that was wrong. That was very wrong. And I went back a year later and rechecked all the boxes and put it back out. But you're gonna lose that battle, and that doesn't mean you have to let go of. Like Tom and I don't have to let go of the CD,
not going to let
and
go
the packaging
of those
and stuff. But you still got to do everything else too. You got to put it out there digital because some people.
You got to cover your bases. Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, we're gonna do some CDs, and we'll do some. We'll do the regular digital distro, and then it'll get YouTubed, and it'll just be out there. It's like a wild animal. You throw it out there, and you don't know where it's going because you don't have any control anymore. The record companies don't even have that much control over it.
No,
anymore.
They don't.
But it'll be out there, and you guys will get one. Don't worry about it.
Well, where can everybody follow along to the release schedule and everything? You have a website? Is it DennisChurchill-Dries.com?
I have a horrible, shitty ass paint by numbers site that I haven't updated in years, but I decided to hang on to it because I knew that this 1206 thing was going to be coming up soon. So it'll be out there. Mm-hmm. And I will get around to updating that site or have my daughter help me because I'm such a dork with that stuff. But and it'll be, I'll have it out on my Facebook and Instagram. It'll be splashed on there and Stan Cotey's as well.
Okay, great. Well, Dennis, hey, I really appreciate this. Tom and I had a really good time talking to you tonight, and we're gonna let you go.
I need a beer.
That's right.
I had a tequila while I did this, so
forget about
you got to come prepared.
Hey, it was great to talk to you guys. It's really cool to talk to people that love music like you guys do and appreciate it and connect with things and I love what you guys are doing and giving a voice to artists like myself that don't have the big machine behind them and which I probably never will again and I don't even want it. I'd rather be grassroots and be connecting with people like you and it means a little bit more to me and I appreciate you guys. So thank you for what you're doing.
Oh, thank you.
Thanks. I mean, that's what we set out to do when we started this podcast 6 months ago is we wanted to be more in depth because we are music lovers and we wanted to have the guests on that have always touched us and have always been special to us. And that's what we've been having, right? We haven't had one guest yet on that isn't a huge favorite to at least one of us, and most of them have been both of us. So it was a pleasure talking to you. It really was.
That's cool, and I'm sure you're getting some music back to people that weren't even aware of some things. So that's a cool part.
We are. That's what I'm enjoying too. We're getting great feedback on all the sites. So it's been rewarding so far, and it's great having guys like you come on. I appreciate you giving us your time.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. You guys rock, man. Keep it up.
All right.
Thank you, Dennis.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Appreciate it.
Cheers.
Take care.